So welcome to today's session. I'm Stephanie Keenan. I'm Head of English Programmes at English Mastery Secondary. So that's our Key Stage 3 programme. And prior to joining ARC Curriculum Plus in January 2022, I was Head of English, taught for 10 years before that, and also was involved in whole school literacy and curriculum lead across the school in my old school as well. So I'm going to go through and just give you a little bit of information today about English Mastery, some evidence of our impact, and a little bit more about the English Mastery current randomised control trial with the EEF. So first of all, about English Mastery, we are, excuse me, just close the chat. So we are grown out of ARC. So ARC, as you probably know, is a really high performing multi-academy trust, one of the highest performing in the UK. And ARC Curriculum Plus was grown out of that essentially because ARC wanted to have a really sound curriculum and assessment programme that meant they could assure quality and assure progress and attainment for their students. So ARC Curriculum Plus is now grown beyond ARC schools, and it's used by up to 600 schools in other parts of the country. So that also includes not just English Mastery, but Maths Mastery, Science Mastery, and we also have primary programmes, Maths Mastery, and we have Geography, History in the primary sector as well, with an English primary trial. So they're kind of growing all the time, and it's a whole suite of curriculum programmes. But English Mastery was started in 2015. And we have about 200 schools across the UK using English Mastery within and outside ARC schools as well. So really, like I say, the clear focus was on designing and launching an English curriculum that had this integrated assessment framework. And the other important aspect is that we have embedded PD as well. So we believe that, you know, the curriculum is not just the resources, it's obviously about the implementation. So our professional development is very much part of what we do at English Mastery. So, sorry, went one too fast. So who are we? This is some of the team that are working with English Mastery. Like I say, it's really important to us that we have a close relationship with our schools. We're not just giving you some PowerPoint slides to plug and play. We're far from that. We're the opposite of that. We're all former experienced teachers, some still currently teaching and seconded to the team, some embedded in the ARC network. So we get that kind of immediate feedback about the programmes to keep improving them. And, you know, like you, we want to ensure that students are successful. And if you're on the leadership or tailored programme with English Mastery, you'll have a dedicated English Mastery lead who will come out on school visits and support you with successful implementation of the programme. And we believe that that really is, you know, is central to our success. And we will be your first port of call. So we're always on the end of the phone or an email away if you need support or help finding anything. So this is our mission. Essentially, the only reason that we do any of this is because we believe that the programmes that we're making are going to give the students that are learning from them the best opportunity of success to improve their progress and attainment. So everything that we do from our curriculum design and implementation is comes from that premise. So how did we start? We grew out of ARC, like I said, in around 2015, and essentially attainment was good, but progress could have been better. And the feedback was that a lot of Key Stage 4 was spent making up lost ground from Key Stage 3. There was a feeling that it was around that time that the Key Stage 3 wasted years report was published, and the kind of curriculum that you've got on screen there, where there was it was quite a sort of piecemeal magpie approach, anything goes, often not really thoroughly sequenced. And, you know, lacking experienced teachers. As we know, we often tend to deploy our experienced teachers on GCSE or A-level classes. So it became even more important with less experienced teachers teaching in Key Stage 3 that we had that kind of scaffolding of a really solid, well-sequenced progression curriculum with inbuilt assessment and PD. So that clarity was really important in the curriculum development when we first started. Still now, you know, planning and marking are necessary but onerous. It wouldn't be the case to say that if you use English Mastery, you won't plan lessons, because obviously you're going to have to plan them for the students in front of you and teach responsibly. And I think most teachers wouldn't want to kind of take that robotic approach to just here's some PowerPoint slides I'm going to read off. That's not what makes teaching enjoyable. So, you know, obviously you're still going to have to plan to a degree with English mastery or any resource curriculum, but it massively cuts down that responsibility of planning from scratch and trying to do that whilst teaching a full timetable or maybe running a department. So it's very much about a support and knowing that you can rely on a really well constructed and well sequenced curriculum and assessment program. So it does, a lot of our feedback comes and it does cut teacher workload very effectively. So some of the specific issues that we wanted to address here. Just let you read those. These are the challenges that we saw across ARC that needed tackling. And, you know, we were lucky enough at the time to have someone at ARC who was exclusively focused on research, which is Daisy Christodoulou. And these are some of the influences on the programme in its first iteration. So you can see there that we are strongly influenced by cognitive science principles, that we are influenced by project follow-through and the results of direct instruction, particularly in our grammar instruction programme. And that also we're looking at work around vocabulary with Isabel Beck's work and influenced by Teach Like a Champion techniques and Michael Young's ideas around powerful knowledge. And of course, Daniel Willingham, of course, they're a powerful influence as well. So just to give an idea of some of the influential factors back in 2015 when the curriculum first started to come together. And these are some of our intentions. We wanted to include texts that were culturally significant, challenging. We wanted to identify very clearly what the curriculum intent was, what the learning was, and that we would choose the highest leverage activities for our students. The curriculum is differentiated in the sense that we are not going to dumb down. We are going to always aim for our students to be accessing the highest level content, but we do have a traditional and a foundation tier. And again, as I said, everyone will be adapting responsibly for their own classes in front of them. We, back in 2015, essentially embedded tier 2 vocabulary sequencing so that that was explicitly taught. And, you know, knowledge, which is a very popular catchphrase now, but this was always the basis of the curriculum. We teach grammar explicitly, influenced by direct instruction principles, and repetition is part of that, and drilling for fluency, so that students, when they come to apply, their knowledge in creative writing are really confident and fluent and automatic with their grammar knowledge. There's one assessment per term. In ARC, there's only one yearly assessment that the data is collected for. And it's very important to us that obviously the conditions for the assessment were the same across the network and non-referenced. And a nice thing about it, of course, is that through ARC and now growing beyond ARC, that we've got a subject community that we're teaching the same text, so therefore we can share knowledge, we can share student work. And when we're talking about the curriculum or talking about what we're teaching, we've all shared the experience of teaching the same thing. So that really helps when we have our standardization sessions across the network and beyond the network, where we can all be talking about the same topics and work. So just to give an idea of the journey so far then, we started off with this pilot study in 2015, just in 7 ARC schools. By 2018, we were in 57 schools nationally. Our first impact report was by the Brilliant Club, which found that, which found that 4 months additional progress. And then in 2019, the EF took us on for an efficacy trial. Of course, we were interrupted by COVID and the national global pandemic. So that meant we couldn't get the robust impact evidence we were looking for, but we got some really good qualitative feedback from teachers. And like I was talking about workload earlier, among some of the feedback was that 80% of our teachers felt their workload was reduced in relation to planning and marking, which, you know, was really good for us to hear. But we didn't give up there. We've gone back for more, and the DfE is now supporting us with a second EF efficacy trial, which we are still recruiting for now, which is a randomised control trial. So not only are we very, very much interested in using evidence to inform our curriculum design decisions, we also want to test our curriculum and make sure that it is effective and has impact. So we're putting ourselves out there with that EF trial, and we're still looking for people to join us with that. So I think just to address some kind of misconceptions really about English mastery, and I think, we get a lot of these false binaries of kind of trad and prog debates, and we get a lot of kind of criticism of resource curriculum. But, I kind of think most departments would have a shared set of resources on the shared drive that maybe their head of English has designed. So it's not like we're all necessarily planning everything from scratch individually anyway. I think people tend to think, oh, English mastery is just like resources, or it's a few free units, and that you just kind of plug and play the PowerPoint and then you just read off the PowerPoint, and it kind of dumbs down the curriculum, or it's oppressive to teacher autonomy. But I would really say that is the opposite of what we are about. That's the opposite of what we're intending to do. If you just want resources, you can go to TES, you can go to LitDrive. There's some great stuff out there. The English teaching community is amazing at sharing resources freely and willingly. And I think if you want a unit, then that's one thing. But what English mastery is much more than just resources and PowerPoint slides. You don't really even need the slides if you've got the unit intent and medium-term plans. And we certainly don't want teachers just teaching from PowerPoint slides like robots. So all of those things are misconceptions about the English mastery curriculum, because what it actually is a much more complete thing than that. So it's a fully resourced Key Stage 3 curriculum, which is sequenced in great detail. It not only has all your lesson resources, so unit intents, curriculum plans, medium and long-term plans, all your assessments are embedded within that as well. Formative, quizzes, end of unit assessments, end of year assessments, mark schemes, standardisation booklets. You also have co-planning guidance. So for your faculty meetings, there's great resources for co-planning, things like looking at Sherlock Holmes through a feminist lens, or post-colonialism in Small Island. Lots of ideas about how you can approach the text in exciting ways as a department, as well as standardisation booklets, which are really great for department meetings as well. And we have preparing to teach resources, so that before you embark on a unit, you can either come to one of our sessions or run your own to support your department before you get started. So like I say, assessment is integrated, and professional development, the team is part of that. We're not just going to leave you out there to teach. We're here to support you with the implementation, and we've got a lot of experience on different schools, different contexts implementing it, and we know some of the pitfalls, and we prepared for that, and we've got a lot of really good professional development resources to support you and your team as well. So it's far from a few PowerPoint slides on shared drive. It's really a thoroughly thought through, really well designed complete curriculum with co-planning, integrated assessment and integrated PD. So that's everything that you would get from us there. So a little bit about what underpins it. We are a mastery programme, and that goes for the other subjects as well. We clearly specify the core knowledge that we want students to know by the end of the unit, but that also means obviously procedural knowledge, things that they should be able to do. Grammar is taught discreetly and separately through the writing mastery strand, but we obviously expect almost every lesson is a grammar lesson, because they're applying the grammar they've learned in writing mastery in their literary heritage lessons. Vocab, like I said, Tier 2 vocabulary is planned and sequenced throughout the key stage, and assessment, formative and summative assessment, is all planned in. So they're the mastery pillars that underpin everything that we do all the way through. And like I say, we've got the progression framework, all the lesson guidance and resources about how to teach and what to teach and why we're teaching it. Our integrated PD and assessment materials are all part of that. So the three strands are literary heritage, which is essentially your literature curriculum, probably the most familiar part of the curriculum for most English teachers. It's our comfort zone, it's what we love to do. And we have some kind of classic texts and world literature in that strand. Writing mastery, as I said, it's a discrete writing instruction strand. So it's about grammar, drilling to fluency, and then application. And then reading for pleasure is the strand where students have the opportunity to read a range of modern texts and really enjoy reading great books without necessarily writing essays about them, for example. So this is our key stage 3 curriculum map, a little bit hard to see probably in that much detail, but essentially you can see vertically we have in autumn term is our Victorian strand. So starting with Oliver Twist, Sherlock Holmes, Jane Eyre. We thought it was really important to have the female writer and female protagonist there in year 9. And then we've got various themes that kind of will cycle through the curriculum, as you'll see as we go through. We've got the national curriculum specified 2 full Shakespeare plays, which is Midsummer Night's Dream and The Tempest. We used to have Romeo and Juliet in year 9, but we recently changed that for Small Island, the play text, the Helen Evanson play text of Andrew Levy's novel. Some of our schools chose to keep Romeo and Juliet and they just dropped it back to year 8. And some of them are teaching both Romeo and Juliet and Small Island in year 9. So again, there's a flexibility there in terms of you doing what's right for your context. Then in summer 1, we have poetry and allegory. So in year 7, we focus very much on a core understanding of metaphor in poetry. So tenor, vehicle and ground is the main way we approach that. We then progress to allegory through Animal Farm in year 8, and then we look at comparison in poetry because we know how challenging it is for students to write those comparative essays at GCSE. So we really want to build on the metaphorical and poetic knowledge from that strand through to year 9 and build them up for that comparative skill they'll need for the poetry questions and also paper 2. And then in summer 2, reading for writing. So we have Ancient Tales, which is a world literature, world myths and legends unit, if you like. But there are other options there as well. We have the Daydreamer as an option. And then we build into rhetoric in year 8, which is an oracy unit. So they write, but also perform the speech. And then reading for study is a kind of mixed fiction and non-fiction unit, which is, people always say that's quite good prep for GCSE without being, without using kind of GCSE. We're not teaching the test basically. But that's all about building on rhetoric and building on that structuring an argument and exploring non-fiction in an increasingly mature way. And you'll see down the right hand side we've got the strands there of year 7 morality, year 8 duality and year 9 multiplicity. Well, year 7 we're very much looking at tales which might have your more straightforward narratives, perhaps like your antagonist and your protagonist. It's clear in Oliver Twist who the baddies are, if you like. So we're looking at those tales which might have a clear moral, true of the myths and legends in Ancient Tales as well. Then in year 8, we really want them to start thinking about character duality. So a character like Sherlock, a character like Caliban or Prospero, the character can be and have that inherent duality. And also we want them to take on a duality of perspectives. So thinking about alternative viewpoints, you could interpret it like this, you could interpret it like that. And then in year 9, we're looking at that multiplicity. So having multiple interpretations and different views, thinking about context of production, thinking about context of reception and the multiple ways in which text can be explored in really complex ways. And of course, the texts become more complex. I was saying Small Island, it's far from a text which has stereotypical characters. Those characters are drawn in depth. They're flawed, they're tricky, they're interesting, they're challenging. And we really want to get that sense of multiple interpretations and that depth of characterization and plot and character arcs and trajectories in year 9. So while we're teaching literary heritage, it's simultaneously we're teaching writing mastery discreetly all the way through. So often schools might do that as 3 lessons of literary heritage and 1 of writing mastery, or if they have more lessons, they might have their library lesson or their reading for pleasure lesson as one of those, or one of their fortnightly lessons as well. And we've also got some other more expressive units. So perhaps we introduced slam sonnets this year, which some people have done at the end of the year. Some people have done of the Tempest, where students write and perform their own sonnet. We've also got the creative writing unit, which is an opportunity to apply the writing mastery drills, if you like. So some schools thread that through, so they do it through the whole year. Other schools like to save it for the summer term and they do their creative writing unit at the end of the year, so they really get that sense of are students able to transfer the knowledge from writing mastery into those extended pieces of writing. So I could talk about the curriculum for a lot longer, but I'd better crack on. So I guess it is really about laying the foundation. So, you know, we get a lot of challenge about, oh, you know, you've got very sort of traditional text, canonical text. But, you know, personally, knowing what these students are facing at Key Stage 4, I think it would be remiss of us not to prepare them for the study of Shakespeare or the study of 19th century literature in Key Stage 3. And inevitably, that means difficult choices. We can't teach everything in Key Stage 3. There's really only kind of, you know, 3 main terms per year. There's 9 slots, if you like, to really do things thoroughly. And we do believe in doing kind of less better. And I also think, you know, if you've got Oliver Twist in Year 7, it would be remiss to assume that that's not relevant to students now. You know, you've got a story of childhood, of growing up, of danger, of risk on the streets, of grooming, effectively, of crime, of punishment, of living in a city. So I think it's about, you know, not assuming that those texts aren't relevant to students, but looking at them as having a universality, and also realizing there's lots of lenses to look at them through. So, you know, we did a lot of work on characterization and looked at anti-Semitism around the character of Fagin. We looked at the character of Caliban and, you know, the complexity of Caliban's portrayal, and looked at post-colonial readings. So I think it's not to assume that the texts themselves are the end point. They're not monoliths. They're there to be questioned and challenged, and that's what English literature is all about. So on the flip side of that, of course, we are laying the foundations for sophisticated study at Key Stage 4. So Oliver Twist, we've got themes like childhood, the city, for example. We've got Dickens, if you're studying Christmas Carol later on in Key Stage 4. Year 8 is great preparation for Jekyll and Hyde, because you've got all the sort of scientific detective element, periodicals, that duality of character that can lead from Sherlock through to Jekyll and Hyde. And Jane Eyre, you know, depending on what else you're studying, could take you nicely through to any of those Victorian texts as well. And with Frankenstein, you know, female authors looking at Victorian morality as well. So we choose our texts carefully, and we think about how they're going to prepare students for Key Stage 4, not in a way that we want anybody to teach to an exam spec, because we don't want to be doing that in Key Stage 3, but to engage with the sophistication of those texts, the themes and ideas, and the complexity of kind of plot and characterization that quality of text is going to offer our students. So we believe that everybody should be able to access those texts. They're not elite, they're for everybody. So we're very much about the sequencing, like I said, and it's about always thinking, how are we going to build on the knowledge, return to prior knowledge, and develop that knowledge and skills all the way through the curriculum. So one way of looking at that is to sort of deconstruct a paragraph about Jane Eyre. So I'll let you read it first, and then I'll kind of deconstruct it as to where the knowledge comes from through Year 7, 8 and 9. Okay, so if we take a little closer look at that, some of the things that we teach to enable our students to write paragraphs like this are Year 7, we spend a lot of time explicitly teaching how to write topic sentences accurately. We teach explicitly how to use evidence, that it must relate to the topic sentence, and we teach how to embed quotations that link to your point. We've obviously covered contextual knowledge, so we're looking at the mistreatment of orphans in the Victorian era, and we show how to embed that knowledge so that it's not bolted on at the end of a paragraph or a separate paragraph of context that we can see in Key Stage 4, but it's also embedded in the argument. there's a kind of disciplinary understanding, I suppose, there of how writers might use novels to convey a moral message, really relevant for Dickens, obviously, if you're going on to study Christmas Carol in Key Stage 4. So here we might cover elements like Dickens deciding to write Christmas Carol instead of writing a pamphlet, a non-fiction pamphlet complaining about the poor, because he'd reach more people through fiction and engaging their emotions in the characterization plot. So we're always teaching explicitly the context that will make that understanding possible, looking at the knowledge of the typhus outbreak in the novel. So those are all things that are explicitly taught to students as part of the Oliver Twist unit that you can see come through in Year 9 when they're writing about Jane Eyre. In Year 8, we're looking at how to link analytical paragraphs, so how to build their ideas from one paragraph to the next. So we'll teach useful phrases that enable them to do that. We're using our topic sentences to link our analysis together, embedding quotations. Obviously, we're doing that again and again as we go through our analytical writing. We're bringing through some ideas from Sherlock Holmes here about status in Victorian society and class and unequal power relationships in Victorian society. We're bringing in our writing mastery knowledge by using multiple subordinate clauses. We'd always say you can't express complex ideas without complex sentences. We're teaching students how to compose a balanced argument and include additional ideas. So one could infer that inference is obviously useful for analytical writing, but also in Key Stage 4 language papers in future as well. And starting to develop that sense of dual or multiple perspectives. Alternatively, it could mean this, it may suggest that the use of modal verbs, particularly to explore different possibilities and getting that tentative language going as well. It may, it could, it might. So then in Year 9, we move towards developing a thesis. I mean, of course, this can be started sooner, and often our teachers will do that because the students are ready to do that a lot sooner than Year 9. And building our evidence to support our argument. We're using our grammar knowledge. As I said before, in a way, every lesson is a grammar lesson because we're looking always to apply the knowledge from writing mastery into literary heritage. And we've got knowledge there as well about Victorian attitudes to childhood. So that has come from Oliver Twist, but also revisited again with Jane Eyre, particularly looking at the religious side and the hypocrisy of characters like Mr. Brocklehurst. So hopefully through an exercise like that, just through the different elements of the paragraph, you can see how we build and return to certain knowledge and skills, procedural knowledge of how to write, but also the knowledge that kind of underpins the points that the students are making about the text all the way through Year 7, 8 and 9, so that they can really start to write in a sophisticated way about really challenging texts. So, of course, the important thing is implementation. A curriculum resource is only as good as its implementation. We talked before about the fact that we don't just want to give you the resources and see them as these just a set of PowerPoint slides. We're not about that. We're very much about the support that you need to guide you through the implementation. If you are on the leadership or tailored scheme, you get 2 school visits per year. We can run any session that you want. We've done sort of preparing to teach, standardisation, something bespoke. We will watch your lessons and observe and give really positive, supportive feedback. And you also get online sessions as well. Live induction training where we all get together with other schools. So there's that real network of people that you can talk to who are also doing English mastery in their context. And we are always on hand for any questions. If you can't find a resource or you want a booklet for something, just ask us and we've probably got it, or another school in the network has probably got it. So I'm going to try now and play a video. I hope it's going to work with the sound and everything because I only embedded it today. So let's see. But this is some of our teachers talking about what they think successful implementation looks like in the programme. Please tell me in the chat if you can't hear it. Oh, I knew it was too good to be true. I knew it was too good to be true. I was trying to do technical things that are way above my capacity, obviously. I did manage to make it work earlier, but I'm sorry about that. I'll try and if you are interested in seeing them, I can share you the slides later. Just pop your email in the chat to me only, and I can send it to you. So like I said before, I was hoping to get the teachers to talk to you because it's always better to hear it from the teachers rather than from me. But yeah, so like I was saying before, we are not only interested in using our best bets research from organisations like the Education Endowment Foundation, but also we're very interested in checking our own impact and making sure that what we're doing is making the intended impact that we want to make. So I said before, we went to the EF and they ran a randomised control trial, which was stopped in 2019 because of COVID. But although we didn't get the most robust evidence, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we did get some really good insights into the programme with some qualitative feedback. And I'll just let you read some of that. So I think one interesting sort of side note there is that teachers also found that it helped their subject knowledge, either about a text, but particularly about grammar teaching. Because I think a lot of us, our comfort zone is the literature curriculum. And if we've not been taught grammar in an explicit way, it can be quite nerve-wracking. And if we leave it to chance and think, oh, I'll just bring grammar up as and when it pops up in my literature lessons, sometimes it doesn't pop up because we're so interested in talking about the characters or the plot or whatever. So I thought it was really interesting, that feedback, that the teaching the writing mastery curriculum actually enhanced teachers' own confidence in their own grammar teaching. Apologies to any of you who are super grammar experts out there, because it's, you know, no slight on anybody, but it can be quite common in English. So another thing that, you know, obviously was really good to hear was that people would recommend it. They like the training and support, so that was great for our team to hear, because we really want to offer that support. And also one of our aims is to reduce the planning workload. So as the video, if you'd have heard it, said, Verity was just saying it's a starting point, and it's really well sequenced.
Steph, we've got some people saying that they can't hear you. I think
can't hear me, or can't hear the video.
Yeah. Oh no, we can hear you now.
Can you hear me now? Tell me if you can't hear me and I'm just waffling to myself.
Did someone put in the chat?
I tried to play a video, Sophie, and it didn't work, unfortunately.
Oh, that might be it. Sorry,
I think that was it. Yeah, I did try. My tech skills just failed me.
That's fine. I've just checked the chat, so I just wanted to check.
No worries. So yeah, and what was nice is that I think we got feedback that our support was helpful, and, you know, rather than being perhaps sometimes, depending on the culture of your school, observations can be stressful. You know, we're really there to just be completely on your side. We're not judging anybody, we're just there to support. So feedback like this from our treatment schools was really good to hear. You know, you've just got kind of really experienced teachers on hand to come in and just support you with no other agenda than helping you get better. So we had really good feedback on literary heritage and writing mastery. The reading for pleasure strand was much more, it's the most adapted strand, so it was really kind of hard to follow and get useful feedback, because everybody really kind of does their own thing quite creatively in reading for pleasure. So that was kind of harder to measure impact for. And people are divided about writing mastery. I think, you know, not everybody's used to that direct instruction, explicit instruction way of teaching, and that can be difficult to adapt to for some people. But the people who liked it say it works. The thing that you need to be really careful about with writing mastery is that the knowledge doesn't get stuck in the writing mastery lessons. You have to constantly boost transfer by referring back to it in your literary heritage lessons. So something to watch out for that, I would say, is if you separate out split classes, so you have your writing mastery teachers and your literary heritage teachers, they need to talk. because otherwise the knowledge can get siloed if you're not constantly boosting transfer between the strands. So that's just something to be aware of. This was a really nice bit of feedback, because it's that kind of realization when teachers have been teaching the curriculum for a couple of years, that the knowledge comes back and that the vocabulary comes back and that the retrieval practice and the interleaving is really sound and really well sequenced. And there's always that kind of aha moment where teachers sort of see that happen from year 7 to 8 to 9, and that's always really good to hear. Again, really pleasing sort of qualitative feedback on improving student grammar skills and progress. And the thing that I said before about teacher subject knowledge improving with grammar. We've all improved 100%. Well, that's good. I don't know if we can quantitatively measure that, but it's positive feedback, which is great to hear. I won't be able to play these videos because the sound's not working, so I'll skip that. But like I say, if you are interested in the slides, I can send them to you later. And I'll let you just read this bit of feedback as well. So again, I think this speaks to the misconception that, you know, that we're just giving a set of PowerPoint slides and that you should be teaching from those unthinkingly. It's the opposite of that. We're giving you a well-sequenced curriculum so that you can then think about how to deliver it to the specific students in your class in front of you and tailor it to them, rather than having to plan something from scratch and think about the sequencing as well as doing all of that. So the fact that that can be empowering and liberating rather than a straitjacket, I think that's a really important misconception to address with English mastery. So a little bit about the trial. As I said before, we had to stop our, well, the COVID pandemic interrupted our last one, but we came back for more because we want to really check that our programme is making the impact that we believe it is. So this is a little bit about the trial. I'll let you read that. So we wanted to get involved in a randomised control trial because it's hard with applied research because it takes place in the classroom and they are difficult places to, you know, as we know, difficult places to control, unlike laboratory conditions. But we wanted to get as close as we could to the kind of gold standard of research by taking part in a randomised control trial. So this is how it works. If you are interested, you apply for the trial, then randomisation takes place. Then you're allocated either to a control group where you keep teaching your own curriculum, or the treatment group where you will be teaching English mastery. So in a control group, you just carry on doing what you're doing. And then you will be asked to submit data throughout the two-year trial. And you get a payment just for taking part. So you don't get the benefit of the curriculum, but you will get a payment for submitting the data and being part of the research trial. Then if you're in the treatment group, you get full access to English mastery curriculum and all our support from the team. You'll implement it with at least year 7 in the first year and year 8 in the second year. And then you get it for a really heavily subsidised price of £900 per academic year, which is considerably cheaper than it would be normally. So to take part in the trial, you have to be an English state school, be non-selective, have a year 7 cohort in 2022, year 8 2023, not have delivered English mastery in the past, and at this point special schools are unable to participate in the trial. So that's all the information about the trial. If you are interested, then do get in touch. There's a QR code there, or I'm free now, so if you want to unmute and talk, or if you want to put questions in the chat, do feel free to just fire any questions at me. They can be about the trial, or they can just be about the curriculum generally, or just anything you wanted to ask. It's 4:44, so you've got some time with me if you want it. Just let me know what you want to know, or anything you found interesting or not, or anything else that you'd like to know. I'll just hang here for a while and just say hello and tell me what you'd like to know. Or does anyone want to tell me why they've joined today? What you were hoping to get out of the session, and did you get out of the session what you wanted to? Do you mean, Adrienne, do you mean in the trial, or do you mean in just in the curriculum generally within ARC? Yeah, within the trials. So it's the GL assessments, and I'll have to check how often they're submitted, but everyone will use the same GL assessments. But if you drop me your email address, Adrienne, I can give you a bit more detail on that. Thank you. Just make a note of that. Thank you. Again, Katerina, I don't know if do you mean in the trial or generally within the schemes of learning? Generally, okay. So we are keen on formative assessment. So within the units we have fortnightly quizzes, so multiple choice questions, and some people like to use those as kind of half-termly quizzing assessments, and then we would have an essay at the end of every literary heritage unit. And for writing, again, it's mostly formative within the writing mastery strand, but then in the creative writing unit we have a short story is the outcome. In the rhetoric unit, it is a speech that is written and performed, and in reading for study it's a piece of non-fiction, again like a speech or a letter, and there's some flexibility about what that is. So generally we want autumn and spring terms to have formative feedback, and then we would have a summative assessment at the end of the year. So yes, so that would be kind of quizzes and essays for literary heritage, and then formative assessment with a writing outcome, whether it's a short story, a speech, or an article in the writing curriculum. That would be generally. But again, Katerina, if you want to send me your email, I can probably send you an example of an assessment. But it wouldn't be something that would be that unfamiliar, you know. It would be an essay. For example, in Midsummer Night's Dream, it's an essay about the function of the love potion in the plot. In Small Island, it's a question about which character do you think changes the most across the course of the play. So we're just checking. The emails. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I can pop those resources to you, and again, Adrienne, I can find out a little bit more detail about how what the DL tests are. Sorry, that's my son and dog. If there are any other questions, do pop them in the chat. Otherwise, I'll just give it another few minutes, and if there aren't any other questions, I would just say you've got the QR code there to scan if you want to chat to us about taking part in the trial, which we are still recruiting for. So the information is there. Like I say, it's a randomised control trial, so you either get a heavily subsidised chance to try English Mastery, or you'll be in the control group. And like I say, the impact is measured by those GL assessments.
But just to let you know, the deadline is is this Friday, tomorrow, to submit for the trial. There may be a slight extension, but
Right. Okay, so in that case, talk to us quickly.
book a call now, because it's tomorrow, by end of play tomorrow, we are looking at the deadline. Depending on if we get a lot of interest today or tomorrow, there may be a short extension, but to be safe, I would put it in.
Yeah. In answer to that, Adrian, yes, you would need to purchase the text, but we do have subsidised rates with Brown's books, so we have a discount with Brown's books. And I've just got a message back from one of the people who's running the trial. It's the GL PTE 13, apparently, the assessments. So
sorry, Steph, you finish.
No, go on. So the control schools don't sit English Mastery assessments, they just carry on with their own curriculum assessments, and then the evaluation comes at the end of year 8. So then students at the end of year 8 will sit the GL progress test in English. So that's an external test that won't be linked to the curriculum tests. It's a bit like the Key Stage 2 SATs, and the evaluators will take a sort of sample from students from each school to sit that assessment from both groups. So it's kind of, if you imagine it like a SATs test or a GL test, it's not based on Jane Eyre or, you know, Oliver Twist or whatever. It will be based on, you know, the knowledge and skills that the students have got. So that will be the case. So they wouldn't need to necessarily take the English Mastery assessments. The way that the impact is measured is through the external GL English assessments. So I hope that makes more sense, Adrian. But I can send you an email about that anyway. Yeah, and if you needed you know, the reductions for the text, then, you know, let us know and I can send you the link for Brown's where we have a discount.
It is also, there is only specific text needed for certain units. Some text you can use any version, isn't that right, Steph?
Yeah, you would need, for Oliver Twist, we have a specific version, but yeah, A Midsummer Night's Dream, you should be fine. Again, I think we've tried to make it so that we can get the cheapest prices from Brown's, so that they're as accessible as possible. But let us know if, you know, cost of books are a problem. And ideally, yeah, if you want to get someone to give you a call about it, just let us know. And if you were an English Mastery school, yeah, that would be an additional cost to buy the text, which is a fair point that would have to be factored in.
I will also say, if you do scan and you're struggling to book a call in with us tomorrow, what I'll do is I'll put my email in the chat, and if you email me, I'm sure I can do some wiggle room and find some space for you tomorrow, because I know it is a bit urgent. But if you are interested and you follow the link and you can't book the call, just drop me an email.
Cool. Anything else I can help you with? Cool. So Sophie's very kindly shared her email if there are any questions there. I'm on Twitter at Head of English. If you want to reach out that way, I'm always up for talking about English and curriculum. So by all means, get in touch and follow us for more news on English Mastery webinars and what we're doing. We've had a whole week of them this week on everything from Shakespeare to rhetoric to metacognition. So we're always doing that kind of thing. We've got blogs on our website as well about how we made our rhetoric unit that might be interesting to have a look at. So yeah, follow us on Twitter and keep posted with what we're up to. English Mastery on Twitter as well, if you want to keep up to date with what we're doing. Cool. Well, if there aren't any more questions, I will let you go and enjoy your evening.